Hey, Anne Claire, how's it going?
Hi, Meg. I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I have a cozy candle on and it
Aw.
smells amazing. It like kind of snowed a little last night, so that's kind of cozy. I'm getting winter vibes today.
Yeah, I was going to say, winter has arrived
I have my
in
sweater.
Connecticut. I'm in my forever the same sweater forever sweater.
It's your
you know
uniform.
what I mean? Exactly.
Whenever I wear the same sweater a lot or outfit a lot, I call it my uniform.
This is definitely my, it's literally my colors, the blue and the yellow.
I want one. Maybe we should just
Oh.
wear uniforms.
We should create uniforms. The Meg and AC uniform plus RC something.
Yeah,
With a little name tag. I've never had a thing where with my name on it, like on it.
Consider yourself lucky because like it probably means you haven't had a job.
So I had like a hostess job sort of a thing when I was a student. And because it was always in different places, you literally had to, like you were receiving different clothes options all the time from like the company that was hiring us. So they would never have like names because you would always receive like a new like version of something that you were supposed to wear. And you would always receive like one of those like, tag things that you either attach or that is around your neck. So that's the most like of that kind of a job where people needed to see my name that I had. But I guess they couldn't afford to put our names on all the different versions of the clothes that we had to wear because it could be like super casual and then it could be like super fancy. So,
well, I've had like so many jobs in the community where they will like make you wear a name tag or like embroider your name into a really dorky polo. And if there's one item of clothing that I do not like to wear, it is a polo. With my name. So if we have uniforms, we cannot do that.
Sounds good. Fair enough. I will not impose that on you.
Unless I can pop it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to pop the collar, but
I'm having weird pictures in my head of you wearing polo shirts. What is the worst color polo shirt you ever wore?
Worst color? I mean, thankfully, they were like more professional colors like navy or red or white. But
because I sometimes see really ugly colors.
They're so ugly. Like baseline, I felt like so dorky every day going to work in the community wearing these polos with like the logo of the company and your name. And then, yeah.
I feel like I'm not as allergic to them as you are. But maybe it's because I didn't have to wear them. So
yeah, I started to resent them a little. I was also on the golf team in high school and I had a polo with my name on it there. And
poor Meg was on the golf team and I had to wear a polo.
I will have to say, though, the coolest part about a polo is if somebody provides a polo with really nice material. So if it's a really nice, like, I don't know what the right phrase is, like air wicking. Is that the right? Or some, it's like breathable.
Sweat wicking?
Sweat wicking material, like very breathable, sporty polo when you're outside doing like working in a uniform. That will change everything.
All right. Yeah. Duly noted.
Things we talk about on YouTube.
The good news is we said that this should be very short and we probably just spent a good few minutes talking about polo shirts.
Oh, well. Okay. So today, let's switch on to the planned content, the recovery content for today. Let's give the people what they want. Anne Claire, what's our question today?
The question is, I keep noticing that I compare myself to others all the time. How can I stop?
This is such a popular question. I'm surprised we've done so many videos and haven't even really talked about this too much. And it comes up pretty frequently in different forms in recovery. And so like before we dive into how to stop, I kind of want to share what I see right? When it comes to this. So there's the obvious, which is comparison of body. And that could be the thing that makes you feel like you're not sick enough, right? If you're constantly looking at someone else's body and judging yours against theirs, you could have an eating disorder that's just as valid, just as terrible, but the body's not going to show you real clear picture of what that person's going through.
I feel like the body in general is like comparing to other people who are unwell, comparing to people who are in recovery, comparing what someone's worst spot was and what they recovered into. And that's so annoying because I hate when people post those before after pictures. They really should stop. But that can be like, that can play in the whole chain, if you see what I mean. Like, it can play at the, am I sick enough to deserve help and treatment? It can play in the, my recovery is going wrong. It's not fair. I'm in this body. This person is in that body. And, the whole process is so uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable. And it's tough because it's hard to stop your brain from thinking that way, right? You're using, again, external clues to inform how you think you should feel, right? And the eating disorder is kind of hijacking the situation, chomping down on the situation, when there are ways you can avoid comparison. Other things that I see in recovery as far as comparison goes is like progress. Like,
oh, yeah. That's a big... Sorry, that was a strong reaction.
It's so true. So what I see a lot is, I've been in recovery for 6 months and this person's been in recovery for 6 months and they're so much farther along than I am. Or it might be, I've been in recovery so much longer than this person has. I see that a lot, like length of time and judging progress and then interpreting that. Like, that means I'm a failure because I'm stuck in this place so much longer than the people around me. And that makes me so sad because there's a part of me that really wants to just remind that person to be patient. Your journey looks different in all ways, including how long it takes you to get there.
Yeah, agreed. Another few things that I can see comparison in other sneaky ways is like, I'm eating this much, that person's eating that much. This is on my meal plan, but this person doesn't have to do that. Or this person has moved in this way today, or is moving in that way this week. And I can't because it's not part of my goals or whatever, like, because I'm working on excessive exercise. And like the way that, like the guidelines that you receive and the goals that we set, sometimes I will really get into those conversations when we set the goals, or then they have received goals from their dietitian or their therapist. And they're like, but that's not fair. Why do I have to do that? And that person doesn't have to do that. And that's the direct comparison. It's like me versus this other person. And I feel like it gets extra hard when, you know how in recovery, sometimes we use others as an example of why this is normal. Say a fear food, like I cannot eat that or else this will happen. And it's like, okay, can we look at other people for proof? Did that happen for them? And it's like, no, it's like, well, but then, so we're kind of using comparison in a helpful way. And then suddenly a few weeks later, it's like the same person is the wrong point of comparison. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's just this weird like thing in recovery where we're going to sometimes look at others and then the same others are unhelpful later for another comparison.
It's very arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's hard. It's confusing. And I get it. I get why it's so confusing. And it's so human as well.
Right.
I mean, I still compare to other people.
I see it a lot too. Like if we're talking comparison with food, this is a classic. Someone on a meal plan comparing themselves to their intuitive eater partner.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, this person isn't eating all these meals and all these snacks regularly every day. Why should I? And you have to remember, you have a totally different experience at the moment and totally different goals when it comes to eating. And that seems to always be something that ED loves to take in and confuse you with, like, oh, well, your partner didn't have an evening snack, so maybe you don't need one. And it's like, no, you have a meal plan. This person's intuitive. They're connected to their body. You're building up that connection and it's going to.
Yes. And I feel like we're already like going into the how to work around it.
When it comes to working around comparison, I think the first thing is like building awareness that it's happening. So like, how do you feel? Like what feelings come up for you when you start to do that comparison? And also, what are your triggers? Maybe there's a certain influencer online or a certain individual or a place. Like triggers can be anything, but what triggers you into starting that comparison? And then what feelings does that stir up? And how does your body feel? Like there's always that I'm a recovery detective trying to collect clues and build awareness around my experience when I'm starting to compare. That's like the first step.
Yeah, I would add to that equation, like what feelings come up and what self-talk comes up. Because typically it's like, the comparison thing is like this, then you have to do that sort of a thing, right? And of course, maybe it's not as obvious all the time, but usually if we pause, we can definitely hear the self-talk and the quote unquote logic that is supporting a certain reaction based on that comparison trigger. But I agree, awareness, always the first step, because building awareness is basically building opportunities. And the more we label things, right, before, the more able we are to spot them in the wild, Like if in session with your coach or your therapist or your dietitian, you talk about things, you're doing is planting a little red flag on those like situations or thoughts or feelings. And then when they come up, you're a whole lot more likely to be like, hold on a second. Like I talked about this in a session this past week. What can I now do? Like that pause is magic because that's a doorway to changing the pattern of comparison.
I love that. Oh, talk about this in therapy, gather all the clues, build the awareness. Sometimes I feel like as a coach, someone's sitting with me, why are we talking about this again? It's like, because we're building awareness, okay? We're building awareness so that you can plant that little flag and in the moment, pause, which puts space between maybe that emotion, the self-talk, and what you choose to do about it. And how
you go from reaction to response.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to get you in that place of responding, not reacting.
No, I love that. I do also want to say the therapy, coaching, dietitian appointment is also the space for you to explore why this comparison thing is so very unhelpful. So outside of the moment, not only can you plant the little flags, but you can also explore why is it that I, for myself, agree that I don't want to act in this way? What are the consequences of listening to comparison and to those reactions that come up that are usually highly eating disorder driven? How do I feel about those consequences on my recovery, my motivation, my energy, my mood, etc.? And price that out, is the price that you're paying for the impact of comparison something that you're okay with? But do that work outside of the moment, right? It's in the moment, you have to start processing things. It's a whole lot harder. But if you've done outside of the moment the work to sort of be like, okay, red flag, why do I not want to just react to this? Why do I not like the cause consequence here? That way, you're also preparing your second option for in the moment, right? So that in the moment, you're like, red flag, pause. I know and I can trust that I have concluded for myself that I do not want to do what that loud part of my brain is telling me, the eating disorder self. And I also know that I already have a pre-prepared option B, and I can give that option B a try.
Beautiful. I agree with you on all fronts there.
Now, it's important to look at all the underlying layers to that and to give yourself a break. Because comparison, like I was mentioning quickly earlier, is a pretty human thing to do. I think it gives us, that sense of belonging and validation. Like when I see myself reflected in someone, or when I feel like I'm doing something like someone else, it makes me feel like I belong in that community. And we are social animals. So I want to give people a break. I still compare myself to others. I think that to an extent, it can inform us too. Comparison is not just outright bad. Comparison can be highly helpful. Comparison can be inspirational. But we know, based on the question we received, that we were talking about highly unhelpful styles of comparisons. Right. And so, don't judge yourself if you're like, oh, I compare a lot. Cool, fine, you're human. Shocking. Yeah. What is important here is to be able to spot when it's highly unhelpful versus when it's actually something that can give you ideas. I mean, you sometimes as a human give me ideas about, how I could be, or like, that's literally sometimes like asking you a tip or something, because I'm like, oh, wow, she's doing it in this way. I'm like curious about that. It's not outright bad, but it is important that you're coming back to who you are. Because when I compare to you, for example, now, let's say as a coach, don't have an idea off the top of my head, but I'm sure it happens. The way I'm processing it is like, ooh, like that is interesting. And I feel like this could match my needs, my wants, my life, my internal compass, not yours. And that's the opposite when comparison is unhelpful in recovery. It's like instead of trusting our inner needs, wants, desires, goals, whatever, suddenly we're referring to someone else's, measure, body, needs, etc., which I feel like that sort of helps me to know whether something is actually helpful or unhelpful. Is it guiding me back to myself, or is it like using something outside of me as an authority, which doesn't really make sense?
Right. It's like comparison can be seen as something that's positive and motivating at times, but also really helpful and harmful. And I think it comes down to how you interpret a lot of that comparison. So if I'm looking at who you are as a coach and I'm like going into shame, embarrassment, like feeling like crap about myself, that's not a helpful comparison. But I could also look at that comparison and maybe choose to respond in, that's something I can aspire to do. That's something that can improve my coaching practice, etc. So comparison can be kind of used in that way as well. And I also want to add this little tip kind of on the side, which is there is this book. I love it. It's called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And there's this question in there that she talks about self-talk, right? There are thoughts that cause us to suffer, right? These comparative thoughts can bring up shame and suffering for long periods of time. But the question you can ask yourself is, who would I be without this thought? What experience would I have that's different without this thought? And I always love seeing like, okay, say you're at a party and you're comparing your body to someone else's body, totally ruins the experience of the party for you. What would that party have been like if you didn't have those comparison thoughts? You would have socialized, you would have had fun, you would have eaten freely, maybe you would have made new friends. Like, who would you be without that thought can really help you see the pain that these comparison thoughts kind of show you.
I love that. I so love that. And now I want to say, if someone's spotting that, oh yeah, that's what I do, and I've missed out on so many opportunities, and you're like immediately getting into a judgment of what you've been doing so far, please don't. When you observe things, give yourself like a little bit of self-compassion here. When you're observing things like these, there are opportunities for lessons and for change, not open doors for blame and shame on top of the bad experience and the crappy evening because you spend the whole time body shaming yourself. I just wanted to add that because I get into that so often with clients where it's like, I should have, and I would have. And then it adds a layer of judgment. It's like, how about we don't do that? and we learn from it. So I just wanted to throw that in there quickly.
Right. It's not meant to be something that you beat yourself up with. It's meant to be asked so that you can see how clearly unhelpful this comparison is. And it can be an intention to move towards that down the road. What's happened in the past has happened. You can't change whatever happened at that experience. Right. So.
I love that. So how do we want to wrap this up?
Well, I just want to say, everybody here, thank you so much for watching. We love hearing your questions. Please make sure you submit them below. And Anne Claire and I do want to say that we are cooking up a December challenge for everyone. So you don't have to be a member of the Recovery Collective to do this challenge. You can sign up. We actually have a little opt-in link below. You can sign up and participate on a really fun level, because we're not just going to be on YouTube. You can interact with us in December if you'd like by doing this December challenge. So we're excited about it. Do you have anything?
So excited. No, I think you will be able to see on the opt-in page what that's about. Basically, right before the month starts, you will receive a nice little workbook with journaling prompts and calls to actions, and we'll host a little community on a separate Facebook group so you can interact with each other and support each other. And even though it's called a challenge, obviously this is very much a soul self-care sort of a thing. And we're so excited. We've been talking about this for a little while. So
yes,
so
exciting. We hope to see you guys in that December event. And also thank you guys for watching today. We hope you found this helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, Meg.
You're welcome. I'll see you soon, Anne Claire.
Bye.